Welcome to the Virtual Office Hours. This is the spring 2016 episode. My name is John, or season, I should say. My name is John Fia. I teach American history at Messiah College and chair the history department. Abby Blakeney, our producer, is here. And we are here outside of my house again for another episode. It's a nice January day, so we thought we would do this outside. I'm on sabbatical, so I'm not coming into the office. My daughter over here, Caroline, come here, Caroline, say hello. She's here with me too, along with Abby. Wanted to make a little cameo appearance, or actually I forced her to make a cameo appearance. But we are talking about the idea, or the idea that America is or is not a Christian nation. And we're basing this on my book, Was America Founded as a Christian Nation? Some of you know, if you've been watching, that we're hoping for a fall release of the second edition of this book. Last week, we talked about the British colonies, and we discussed very briefly about whether or not we could actually call the British colonies Christian societies, and what that meant for the relationship between the colonies and the American Revolution. Today I want to talk about the 1760s and 1770s a little bit. Was the American Revolution, and I should say the coming of the American Revolution, some type of Christian event, as some people in our culture would like to argue? If you think about the significant moments that we all learned about in school leading up to the American Revolution, the Stamp Act of 1765, the Townshend Acts of 1767, the response to the Tea Act and the Boston Tea Party of 1773, the Coercive Acts of 74, also known as the Intolerable Acts. These were the big moments in which the colonists had grievances against the British government. Now, what I would argue, and what most, I think, historians would argue, is that these grievances, beginning with the Stamp Act, going all the way up through the Intolerable Acts of 1774, were largely economic and political protests, or economic and political grievances. These were laws that were protested against because of questions of unfair taxation, no taxation without representation. The colonists believed that the British government was somehow not acting consistently British by taking away their liberties and their freedoms. So if you look at each one of these various acts, at least the major ones, it's very, very hard to come up with religious reasons why the colonies were rebelling. If the colonists did believe that religion was important, and somehow religion, for example, the idea that all rights, all human rights, or even all British rights came from God, they were endowed by the Creator. This is not how they argued. Now again, maybe they just took that for granted, but most of the arguments, if you read the documents related to the Stamp Act, or the resistance to the Townshend duties, or the Boston Tea Party, or the resistance to the Tea Act, or the Intolerable Acts, these were all driven by political and economic motivations rather than by religious motivations. At least that's how the documents read. So did Christianity have a role to play in the coming of the American Revolution? Perhaps it did, and there's been a lot of very good scholarship to point to the role of Christianity in the coming of the Revolution, but it's very, very hard to argue that religion or Christianity was the primary reason why the American Revolution came. And I think this then, if we make that argument, it goes a long way to helping us make sense of this much larger question of whether or not the United States was founded as a Christian nation. I talk more about this in, I think it's chapter 6 or 7 of the book. Go there and sort of check out my argument there. But at least this will sort of prompt you to kind of think about how I'm approaching some of these questions about Christianity and the coming of the American Revolution. Next week, we will talk a little bit more about Christianity or religion and the Declaration of Independence. So we will see you next time. Thanks for watching the Virtual Office Hours.